Today, I'm talking with Mina and Gustav. We talked about how the Agile Manifesto was involved in their marriage, how learning and problem solving is crucial in their careers, the advantage of having a strategy for life, and how all three of us we inspire each other by involving our children in our work life. We give some examples that hopefully inspire you as well. I'm Ivanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello and good evening from Belgium here. And with me, I have Mina and Gustav. And before we jump right into, I want to show a little bit. I am here in Belgium, and Mina and Gustav are in Stockholm, Sweden. So we're moving a little bit across Europe, not that far. And I'm not sure if this is more or less your location, but this is about where you are, I think.
Where we used to be, in fact.
But... Yes.
So you moved already. So that's even more interesting.
But it's
well,
not
okay.
Far, so it doesn't matter.
And the other thing, of course, to discuss is time zones. For me, it's 15 after 8 o'clock. And what time is it on your side?
It's the same. We are in the same.
It's the same because we're in Europe and time zones are not that far. We're actually different, far away, but time zones were not that far away. But we've jumped right into this. And for the people who are new and who don't know you, just introduce a little bit yourself. Who are you?
So I can start. So my name is Mina, although I am now located in Stockholm. I originally come from Serbia, from Belgrade. I have been working with the software development for more than 20 years. And for a long period of time, meaning almost 12, 13, 14 years, I worked on the deep technical side as a developer and an architect. But after that, I switched to that managerial path. So currently, I work as a Chief Technology Officer at Flight Radar 24. So I'm within aviation domain. But my passions are in the intersection of technology, business, leadership, and innovation. That is in the middle of all three.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mina. I'm Gustav.
Yeah, and I'm Gustav Bostrom. I've been working in software development for almost as long as Mina, I think. I started out as a technical sales and supporting companies developing ERP systems with IBM software. I actually started working in Belgium, not so far away from where you are.
Wow. Oh, I had no idea. Or I forgot already.
Yes, so I worked in Laur Porterhulpen.
Okay.
But then I moved back to Sweden and started working with software development because I wanted to do it for real, not just helping people. But I realized I didn't know so much about software development. So I tried to resist going into programming because I thought I would become a management consultant or something like that. But when working,
there's no way to resist.
When I noticed that I worked until 4 a.m. in the morning without having to do that, and on several occasions, just because I thought it was fun, I realized why stop? It's fun. I get paid. I'm happy. So I continued with software development until I thought, well, there's more things to learn here, and I would actually like to do some research. So I switched. So for 4 years, I worked part-time as a researcher, part-time as a teacher in the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, where I also did research on how to combine security engineering with agile software development. But then after a while of having done that, I realized that every time I did programming, it was a happy time. And I longed for it. And then I thought, well, people actually get paid for working as programmers. So I switched to consulting and worked with developing web TV. And actually, after a while also got to apply some of the research I did with security engineering and agile in consulting engagements. So I worked at Omega Point for a while, and then my father became sick, so I had to take over the family business. So I became independent consultant, and now I'm again working in software development, and I've a bit quit the security engineering side. So I'm now developing geographical information system for aviation, which is kind of the same as Mina does.
So we are working in the same domain now.
Yeah, and you've always had some influence on each other, but I'll think you will jump right into that in a minute. So let's move to that first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you that has influenced you?
Yes, maybe I can start. So many people thought that everything that I did in my career and my ideas came naturally, directly for me. But they didn't know that, in fact, I was influenced by my husband, Gustav, many times, that he felt like there is some potential in me, and showed me the right way. And then I used that and developed myself. So since we are talking about the agile software development, thanks to Gustav, I was introduced into the agile software development. The Agile Manifesto was published in February 2001, and Gustav and I met in June 2001. We worked together at one startup. And on our first date, he talked about the Agile Manifesto, and I haven't read it. I didn't know that something like that was published. So I was so inspired, and from that time I have started applying agile principles on everything that I did. So in fact, thanks to Gustav, I became also an agile pioneer. And I must mention another person who influenced and contributed that I become the person that I am today. It's my mom. She was also an engineer, but apart from that, she has that ability to see the big picture and how things intersect and are correlated to each other. Maybe some things that you don't see at the first sight. So thanks to that good genetic material and thanks to Gustav's influence, I'm here where I am today.
Wow, that's a wonderful story. So yeah, I've heard it before, indeed, how the Agile Manifesto led to this marriage. So that was
yes.
Well, it was just that, but it was involved somehow, you can say.
So Gustav, what is your answer to this question?
Well, I would perhaps start in my Belgian roots then, because that was when I started working, and I had some very nice colleagues that I met in Belgium. I can especially mention one woman, Gika van M. de Bois. She was from Holland, and she was working with me in a group dedicated to object-oriented frameworks once upon a time in the end of the 90s. And she inspired me because she went to conferences that she paid for on her own. So she went to conferences like Uppsala that later became Onward, I think. And she encouraged me to go out in the world and seek knowledge. And I followed her advice quite early in my career. So when I came back to Sweden, I think in 2000 or 2001, I don't remember, I went to Uppsala, and then I went to Uppsala again in 2002, and I continued going to other conferences. And so that my early career at IBM, which was quite focused on learning. Actually, my first year at IBM, I was hardly doing anything productive when I think about it, but was mostly being educated by very experienced people. So I think those early influences in my career have been very good. And I also think of one of the founders of the startup where Mina and I met. He was a very inspiring person, Henrik Lindberg, who was curious about many things. And he had an open eyes and open ears to new developments in software development, and that inspired me to sort of learn more about software processes, software technology, aspect-oriented programming, security, and whatnot.
What I find interesting is that for both of you, it's the influence is a lot on learning and learning from people and having people that inspire you to learn more, because that's the kind of the glue between these kind of stories. I would say.
Yes, and also I would like to add also seeing those role models, how they solve the problems, how they approach things, how their creativity or some special way of thinking, and then you both get inspired, but also you learn that things can be solved or done in a different ways, not only what you are taught at school or something.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, because school is sometimes a little bit behind, because of course these teachers have learned it years ago and they keep spreading it, but they might not have been into the industry anymore. And if you are inspired by people in the industry, you might see that, oh, there are different things and there are conferences and other kind of things where people can learn. That is indeed very interesting, and I don't think we talked a lot about this here. So I'm really happy that both of you brought that up. Okay, let's jump into that second question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing today, do you have any idea what you've been doing?
Gustav, maybe he can reveal his secret plans.
Yeah, I don't know. This was a fun question, and I had a few different things that sort of popped up in my mind. Well, one thing is that I'm nowadays a part-time farmer, you could say. So we have cows and forestry and real estate management, which I'm doing.
That you took over from your family business, is this correct?
Yes. So I guess the simple answer would be that I would be doing that. But on the other hand, I realized that I'm an engineer at heart. So perhaps I would have been an inventor. But then as I get older, if I should sort of have some kind of perspective on things, I now find that repairing stuff is really gives me deep satisfaction. So sometimes bicycle repairman or something like that would be sort of satisfying to do. But then,
because you can use your engineering skills there as well, I assume. It's solving problems, but at
yes,
real
solving
world.
problems. I think there has to be a part problem solving in any work that I do. Otherwise, I get bored, and I don't want to do the same thing all the time. So probably I would probably become bored from bicycle repairing. But then I also like working with people, which I do in software development all the time. I really hate when people say, I don't want to work in IT, I want to work with people. I work with people all the time when I develop software. And that's actually why...
I think that's very important.
And that's actually why I continued working as a consultant and why I still continue to work with software development, even though I could work full-time at the farm. It's because I get to meet other engineers and have fun. So, but
and the cows don't speak as much as the people.
No, they don't. And there aren't that many engineers in the forest, so there are some from time to time. But then the third thing was one of my best friends. He said that, well, Gustav, you should have become a diplomat.
Wow.
I think you should have joined the foreign office school and become a diplomat. And yeah, why not? I think that would have been nice. I could have combined my language skills and meet people and
solve problems.
Yeah, and also be a sort of moderator. I'm kind of good at moderating and being soothing political issues.
Wow. Okay, that's a very specific skill to have, and I can imagine in the agile world, working with developers, that sometimes is useful if they have certain ideas. Sometimes diplomatic skills can help.
What happened in many of my agile or consulting engagements is that I started out with some very technical problem, but then after some time in some kind of way I didn't really know. I ended up more as being the bridge between management and development. Sometimes
Which is
for development, sometimes working for management, you could say.
okay, interesting. And Mina, what would you become of you, or do you know if there was another path for you foreseen?
Yes, it's a very interesting question. I have been thinking a lot. First, I must say that I was always like into mathematics and physics, so it was my strength. So I knew that I would work something that is related mathematics, physics. I'm a very practical person, so that's why it became engineering. Also, one thing that I was thinking, so I was thinking like, what can be another profession? On the other side, I have a lot of hobbies. For example, I like reading books. When I was a child, I wanted to work at library, and I'm still reading books, and I would like to be a writer one day. But it's much more, I plan that for the second part of my life. Like it's all already planned. It's not instead of doing what I'm doing today, but it's much more on my life vision, what is planned later on. I can tell you that one of my role models is José Saramago. He got a Nobel Prize in literature. He worked as a technician until he turned 55 or something, and then he started writing books. And he managed to get a Nobel Prize in literature. So still, I have good reasons to execute on my plans, maybe. Then there is another thing that is maybe bigger probability. I really like fashion and sewing clothes, dresses, and I'm doing it all the time. And for me, it's like developing software. I'm always sewing new clothes, new dresses, refactoring old. It's something that I'm doing constantly. So I think it's that need to be creative, to create something. I'm using my engineering skills. So maybe from that perspective, maybe I could have ended up in that kind of creative work. But it's very important to emphasize. It's like I enjoy that, not because I like solving problems, and I'm engineering my dresses. Not only like creativity. Oh, it should be like that, and then you don't know how to put the pieces together. I'm enjoying that process, architecturing, creating, refactoring.
To make sure that you design the best dresses or the best whatever solving a certain problem. That's really interesting, and it's I like it how both of you have multiple options, and it's like, oh, so when I ask this question, many people say, oh, I don't know, and I definitely there's only this I can do, and for both of you it's like this option and that option and this, and it's like, wow, you're really having so many different options. I also like, Mina, usually when I ask this question, people think about what could have become earlier or something like that. And for you, it's already the future. After this role, okay, I might be becoming an author. So there's already that, you thought already about that second part of your life. So that's really interesting.
Mina is always 2 steps ahead. You should know that.
Yes.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that the way that some of the talks that you gave at Ale and at other places that I saw is like, Mina, you always talk a lot about, you've seen the big picture and you think about it, about a bigger scale, I would say. So that's, I'm not surprised that you say that, Gustav.
Yes, and I would like to add one thing. There is one very nice book called On Managing Yourself by Harvard Business Review. And there are a lot of articles written by those famous, very smart people like Peter Drucker, Clayton Christensen. And one article is really about that, your parallel career in life. And they recommend, because many people choose one career, especially ambitious people, they manage and they achieve everything that they set up as their goals, like before they turn 50. And then they feel empty. What am I going to do next? So that's why they really recommend developing different hobbies. so that they can become like a fallback, that you continue with your career in that way. And also in that book, it's emphasized that importance of having strategy for your life, that you have some mission, vision, and goals, what you want to achieve. And of course, maybe it's changing, but all the time that you plan ahead.
So we'll add a link to that book here as well. Okay, let's move to that third question. What do you consider your biggest challenge, and why is it a good thing? At least the biggest challenge that you want to share here.
Mhm.
I think this was a very interesting question. I thought it was a bit strange in the beginning. Wow, how am I going to approach this? But I think one of my biggest, you could say challenges, but there are two sides of that coin. Is that once I have sort of not, I wouldn't say mastered anything, because I haven't mastered anything. There's so much to learn about everything. But for example, when I did research on security engineering, and I published that in international conferences, and I used it, and it worked, and that was nice. I sort of lose interest. I want to do something else. And sort of money-wise or career-wise, I think that could be seen as a challenge, because I lose interest too early. I mean, I never finished my PhD. I didn't really necessarily absolutely wanted to, but that would perhaps from a career perspective been better if I wanted to continue in academia. And then once I had developed and gained enough expertise to really work as a consultant with security engineering and security auditing and agile security, I sort of lost interest, and I found other things that I thought were more fun to do for the moment. So I started developing other sides, which is now geographical information systems, and applying that in forestry and now aviation. And so I guess the challenge is that I don't have enough endurance. But on the other hand, this leads to an interesting life, because I get to change jobs, I get to meet new people, I get to discover new industries, and
you get a broad knowledge about lots of different things. Maybe not a deep knowledge, or less deep than if you would stick to it, but you get a very broader knowledge. I assume that in what you're doing right now, there are not many people who have some experience with security, for example, so that brings some combination.
Exactly. And I can add that both Gustav and myself, we are that type of personality. We are generalists. Yes. So we like exploring, and it's something that fulfills us. But thanks to that generalism, Gustav got his latest job. He has a knowledge about forestry, software development, and GPS information systems. Geographical, yes. So thanks to that, he was in intersection, and it's not easy to find a person like people who has a knowledge. So there are a lot of benefits also when you are generalist, not only specialist within.
Yeah, but the world doesn't always realize that, and we seem to, like you say, Gustav, money-wise, we seem to give money more to specialists than to generalists. So I can see the challenge in that. Yeah. But there is I agree with what Mina just said, is that there is a lot of value in having some people that have a broader knowledge. So that's it's I really like that you share this idea, because it's indeed what I see a lot of people struggling with, and we somehow the world, the messages we get on television, on whatever, it's always about, oh, this is a specialist. But if you then look, sometimes some of these specialists that people are well known for, if they're famous sporters or even famous scientists, if you look really deep into their life, it turns out that they were generalists for a long period, and then all of a sudden found something where they jumped into and that they were known very much. But it's not always seen by the world like that, I would say.
Yes, and I can add also from an innovation perspective. there is something that is called that intersectional innovation, when you combine two different domains in a new way that no one combined before. You have to be generalist and see several different domains. Like otherwise, you're blind to see if you're deeply just in one domain. So I think it increases probability for then intersectional innovation, that type of innovation, if you're a generalist. That we also proved in life. So there are benefits of it.
Yeah, I can definitely
Leads
see
to an
that.
interesting life, at least, I think.
Yes.
I think that's more important, at least for me.
Mina, do you want to add something as a challenge for you, or do
Yes,
you?
I have a very well-defined challenge. I want to
Hey.
success in business.
Succeed.
Succeed in business, yes. So my current challenge is, as I said, I have a deep technical background. I have been working with the agile software development for a long period, but I observed many companies that were in that rapid growth phase and then they failed. So I'm trying to find out the secret recipe, how you succeed with that rapid growth, both from a business strategy perspective, organizational structure, leadership, and technology. So it's my big challenge, how I can avoid doing mistakes that many other companies that I saw did and succeed. So it's my current big challenge. I'm completely obsessed with that, how like company can grow, maybe not rapidly, but grow in some normal way, successful way, but does not repeat all mistakes that many other company do.
That's a very big challenge, I would say. That's definitely.
Yes,
I
yes.
think you're not alone, and it's an interesting challenge. Again, to use your engineering skills on solving problems. That's I like it because when you talk, the way you talk about it is about avoiding mistakes that others did, which is a very scientific way of looking at things. It's like, okay, we'll do something, we'll learn from the experiment, and but also from what people did before. I like the scientific way of looking at that. That's wonderful. Let's move to that third that next question. That I think both of you are very passionate and driven people. If just this conversation, but also many other conversations that we had over the years. So, do you have any idea, one of you or both of you, where that drive, that passion is coming from?
It's a very good question, and I think it's pretty related to your self-leadership goals and also your strategy in life and mission and vision. So when I think, when I tried after reading that book, I got so inspired and I have started thinking about my personal, what is my mission in life and how I'm setting goals, what drives me. So first, I know that I really like one of my main drivers is I would like to share all knowledge that I have with all other people, because I think if we all share everything that we know with each other, the world will be a better place. So I think on the top, like it drives me very much that I get a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge that I can eventually share with other people and also learn from that. So I don't know, maybe it's too philosophical
No, but
explanation.
I like it, and when you say all people, it makes me think immediately and how I saw both of you at ALE, where ALE, where you also share things with your children. You did presentations together with at least one, I think two of your children at least that I saw already. So that you share also it when you say all people, it's not the adults, it's not the grown up, but it's also the children and finding ways on how to share what you do already with your children, and I assume also with others, I think. Yeah.
And probably I can add also on the bottom of that, maybe it's that engineer brain, because when I see some things like I want to solve the problem, then you identify some things can be better or there is a problem. And then I have then genuine interest, like how I can solve that problem, regardless if it is a business strategy or a technical problem or a leadership or whatever. So I think also there is a driver to find appropriate and complete solution to a problem. and
Wow.
it drives me, and that I persevere and give me that persistence that I complete the task because I want to have a solution in place.
Wow.
If I should say what drives me, I think it's basically curiosity from the beginning. I learn how things work on many different levels. I guess now it's mainly technical, but I'm sort of also thinking about trends in management and agile and whatever. But it's always fun to get more knowledge about some topic. There's always more to learn, and once you've learned almost everything in one area, there's another area you can
Yeah,
try.
I can definitely see the link between some of your answers, because indeed curiosity is in a lot of what you said so far already. That is indeed.
And then also an important driver for me is this social interaction. I think that has really driven what I do and why I'm working the way I do now, splitting myself in half. Because this is what gives me energy. Now, during the pandemic, I used to say that people should feel sorry for me because I'm an extrovert. People only talk about the introverts in conferences. That we should think about how they feel all the time and so forth. But during the pandemic, me as an extrovert had a really tough time. I hated it. Sorry, I hate remote work.
Because you don't feel you can connect enough in a remote space.
In the same way, and it's like, I want more. I really like talking to you on the screen here, but there are ways of doing it in fun ways, but I'm sorry, I'm not really a believer in remote work. There are advantages, but if I can avoid it, I avoid it.
Okay, but that's that I think with the whole pandemic learned us to review a lot of different things. I think both for extroverts and introverts, and I think it will still take some years before we realize the advantages and disadvantages at multiple levels. And I hope at least it will bring more empathy for multiple sides. That people, extroverts, might understand a little better. Oh, if you work in a certain way, that is a disadvantage for me, and so if you work in my preferred way, maybe it's less good for introverts, and so we learn from each other. I think that
yes,
there's still a lot to learn there.
I can certainly see advantages as well. I think when I think about it, where the company I'm working at now, which is called Navigraph, we're developing maps for flight simulation. I think we're around 25 people all around the world. What strikes me with this remote working workforce is that we have been able to find really good people, and they might not all be in Stockholm.
Or don't want to move to Stockholm.
Yeah, so it's a huge advantage of being able to work with good people that are distributed and in a way that sort of compensates for, or could compensate for some of the drawbacks. But
it's not enough for you. That's what I'm hearing.
No, actually what happened during the pandemic was that I tried to work at home. And I mean, I had places to work, but I got so depressed by it. So I actually ended up paying for an office space where the others in the office had already had COVID, and I had already had it as well. So we were there together, and it was happy times.
So you were looking for interaction, and with no risk or less risk.
But the interesting thing, but this probably only applies to me, is that you might think. Because the people that were in the office, they were not at all working with me or with the same thing as I did. They were lawyers and working with finance or whatever. And we were talking a lot, having a lot of fun. and you might have think that this would have disturbed me, which in fact it did. But I got more work done there than I did sitting on my own. Definitely.
Wow.
I got twice as much done there because I tried to.
You had more energy.
I got more energy.
Yes,
Yeah, that was the
yes.
thing. I tried to keep the social chit chat a little bit down, but then when I was not talking, and I was really efficient. So I did some really good work, even though I got quite disturbed many times. So
That's really good information and really good to know. And it's definitely different for different people, but it's good when you know this about yourself. And it's interesting that you say this is not working with people that are doing the same work. So it's really basically every message, every interaction is disturbing because it has nothing to do with your work, and still you get more work done. So that's really interesting.
So I guess I'm more extreme on the extrovert scale. I mean, there's a spectrum there.
Well, yeah, it's good to know that that's the thing, I think. Okay, let's move to the next question. What do you consider your biggest achievement? Basically, this is your moment to brag.
I think it's difficult to answer. For example, in my case, I got several very nice awards. I was selected as one of the most influential businesswomen in Sweden this year. But I think why it felt so good, because it's the fact that I had influence or maybe contributed to better work to someone else. You know what is. And we are coming back to my life mission, that I would like to share my knowledge and maybe like how to say, produce that eyes-opening moment to some people, like to open some new perspectives to them, that they say, oh, we didn't take a look at the things in that way. So I think biggest achievement are not awards, but the reasons why I got, because I contributed, I maybe like, open new perspectives to some people, had the influence to some good decisions. So it's from
so it still is the award, but not the award itself, but the reasons for the award, everything behind there. That is.
And I must also mention, and you are going to understand me, if someone is going to understand me, it's you. It's also presenting with my son at the conference, like that. Standing on stage, we practice it a lot at home. You know, you must.
Oh yes, it's
small kids that are like 10, 12 years old practice that energy, like inspiration, motivation. When you see that child is motivated to sit at home with you and practice every day for 1 month, and then you're standing at the conference stage and presenting with your kid. It's like, for me, I feel like I achieved everything that I could have achieved in life. That moment is, I cannot describe it. So for me, it's the biggest award that I achieved doing that.
Yeah, the smile on a child after you've done a presentation together, it's one of the best feelings there is, I think. It's indeed that they realize, and all the struggles in the middle, because like you say, it takes a long time to do the presentation. It's the preparation, it's finding the right words that, especially because both of our children, they're not native English speakers, so that means that they have to learn, well, try to talk in a language that they might be less used to speaking, and doing it in front of an audience that they totally don't know. So that is a lot of preparation there. So yeah, I definitely understand that feeling there. That's wonderful. Yeah. Gustav, you want to add something to this?
Well, if I should mention some of my achievements, well, professionally speaking, I think it has to be the research that I did together with a colleague, Jana Nyfjord, who's now working in Spotify again, I think.
Yes.
And she apart from me, finished her PhD related to agile software development. But the research we did in this, with combining security engineering with agile software development was well received, and we got to present that at the International Conference on Software Engineering in Shanghai. And that was perhaps the high point of my professional software career, I must say, because it's still, this work is still being quoted from time to time.
Yes, I would add it's the biggest achievement that after many years, people are still using Gustav ideas. So it's not only...
I don't know how much they're using it.
Yes,
but at least
referring to them.
Well, in research and in academia, that's what means using it, in the sense that when people referring to it, it means that it has an inspiration, I would say, no?
Exactly.
Yeah, but then it has been useful also in my professional life as a consultant. I have been able to use the knowledge I gained from that research practically in security auditing and doing security workshops. Actually, yes, in fact. So even
so yeah, not just others are using it. You were using it yourself. So that's also nice.
Time to time, not all the time, but at least sometimes.
Yeah, but not all the time is partly because you've moved away to another part of your career, I would say. Maybe if you would stick in security, you would have been able to use it more. Or do I see that wrong there?
Yes, certainly I could have continued on that path had I wanted to do so. But I'm not as strategic as Mina. It's more, I don't know. She's an airplane that drives in a direction to a waypoint. I'm more like a balloon that sort of.
That's a nice way to compare yourself.
Going somewhere nice. I don't know.
Let's move to somewhere nice. The question about personal agility. I know that both of you've been talking also about using agility at the family life and everything. So I'm really interested in learning what you use as a personal agility tip.
Yes, I would like to say or talk about the leadership in agile world. We are applying that inclusive leadership, that you don't have that directive command control leadership, but inclusive, that with your teams you're making decisions. So at home, we are applying inclusive parenthood. It means that we include our children in our work, in many things that we do. And when we started doing that and talking about things that we have at work, not only conferences, someone told me, but why do you bring problems home? And they said, it's not problems. I bring nice solutions. So we don't talk about work as a problems and complaining. We present maybe problem and then solution, how we solved the problem. So I think it's very important for children to see that problem solving way of thinking. And also furthermore, I feel when children are included and they know oh, now mom is doing presentation or doing something, then they allow you to work more. They're not oh, you should spend the time with me. They feel, now we know what is mom doing. And then they feel involved, they're happier. And then in that way, you got more time both for them, for work to complete your task and that they understand that. So, and also in that nice book that I mentioned at the beginning, they named that concept for the total leadership. When you combine work, private life, community, and yourself, and the development in all those 4 areas. And for example, it's exactly what we are doing when we are bringing our kids to the conferences. We develop ourselves professionally, so we do something good for our work because we are listening to other talks, learning from other people. We develop ourselves because we are presenting maybe ideas and getting feedback on them. We are contributing to our family because kids are with us. We don't have to leave them at home that someone else is taking care. So they're all the time, they're not missing mom and dad. And also we are contributing to the community. We are sharing our ideas with that, for example, nice ale community. So I really feel that we are living that concept of total leadership, combining work, private life, and I see only benefits of it.
Yeah, I don't really believe in work-life balance. For me, it's more work-life fusion. Like you say,
Exactly. Exactly.
it's fusing everything. And yeah, what I would add to what you said is that when we bring our children to a conference like Ale, they also see, well, they see the countries, because Ale has the advantage that it's always in another country, so they see some culture. Typically, we there is some moment. So there is, for the people who don't know Ale, there is a part where there's actually a family what it would schedule, I would say, things that the children can do, and that we sometimes visit with them, things, and they talk with other children, and well, my daughter is now in regular, I don't know what means regular, but they're keeping in touch with your children, so they have some kind of way to keep connecting, and yeah, that brings some international friends that they teach, or they learn about writing in English before they talked, or I don't know when was the first time, like they were, I don't know, my daughter was very, very young, 3-4 years. So basically they were still using hand gestures to understand each other. But
Exactly.
now at age 14, it's much more, yeah, gradually. And it's they can, yeah, my daughter, I know that when they were talking, it's like, okay, but these are the people from Sweden. Yeah. And so there was that's an interesting already in the culture, and I don't know why, but since half a year, my daughter is really like, oh, Sweden and Stockholm, I really like it, and
You must
I
come here.
think,
Yes.
yeah, but she definitely is interested in coming to Stockholm, and I think it's inspired by having conversations with you as a family, because I have no idea where else it would come to. So definitely, I think also when, well, to go a little bit sidetrack, you had some what is it, blog post or something, or video about the swimming, what you did, the
Yes,
whole with the
exactly.
lake. I know when I shared it, my daughter was like, "Whoa, what are they doing?" And it's really interesting. So
Oh, but she is very welcome. We are going to organize something that she can come and visit here. But also, as you say, it also enriches their life when they meet other children. Not only that, when they meet all these inspiring speakers that are attending conferences, they're like one of the most smartest people in the world, and they have a chance to have a conversation with them. I think it's really so enriching their lives.
yeah, and not only the smart people, but they're also, well, my feeling at the Yale community at least is that they're very open to have to have real conversations with the children as real people, not just, okay, let's just chit chat a little bit, I know, little child. No, it's really real conversations. I remember when I did a talk with Joppe, I don't know, some years ago at Ale, that there was a real good conversation that he had with Chris Matz, talking really about certain things that Chris said, okay, you need to do this. And I was like, wow, this is a real conversation between two human beings, and one of them is like, yeah, I don't know, 20 years older than my son was at the time, maybe 30 or 40, I don't know. But it was a real conversation with two people, and that's the kind of enrichment that I think we try to bring for our children. I think there's a lot there.
Exactly. And if I can add another personal agility tip, as I mentioned, also importance to think about like your personal vision and strategy. Why is it important? And also to do the parallel with the business. When you do strategy at business, why do you have a strategy? Because you want to execute on strategy, and that you don't have too much those tactical solutions, one-offs to divert from strategy. It's also very important in life that you think, what is important for me? And do things that are like leads to the things that are important to you. Otherwise,
Mm.
all of us found ourselves in situations that we spend a lot of energy and time on these one-offs, even in private life, and spend time on
Yes.
something that is not important. So I think it's very nice that parallel how you do in business and try to stick to your strategy. That's why it's important that you think about your life strategy, things that are important to you, and try to avoid those one-offs that don't make you happy or does not contribute to your personal satisfaction and fulfillment.
But this
Yeah,
is
I like the way you bring it, because it's about the value that it brings. It's
Exactly.
if that's the joy, and it could be for some people, it could be, and at some points it's the money wise, because that's also important
Yes, it can be.
for your life. But it should also bring joy. Sorry, Gustav, I interrupted you. You wanted to add something.
yeah, but I sort of envy people who always know what they want, and they know what they want to achieve. They know what their goals are. All things become so much simpler when you do. So for me, the challenge is more has been finding out what do I really want, and that is not so easy. So unfortunately, I think the only advice I could give around this is perhaps agile in some way. Is that if you don't know, at least try some different things and get some feedback.
I
And
experiment and see what it brings.
yes, and if there's something I've learned in my professional life is that when you're not happy and you change, you do something else, it's almost always become better. So I think if you don't know what to do, at least change might get you closer to a point where you know what you want to do.
Or it tells you very good feedback if you change and it turns out it's worse, then you know something more as
Yeah,
well.
then at least you know that that's not the path you want to continue. So
Yeah,
that's
so that's a really good tip that really helps at the moment that you don't know where you want to go. So just changing a small little thing, that's definitely a very agile tip.
And actually,
Okay, yeah, go.
this applies to companies as well when I come to think about it.
Oh,
People, I remember when I was young, I thought that companies were some kind of optimized machine that through competition always did the right thing, and there were so many smart people in the organization, and that so that they would always do the rational thing, but then after working just a short amount of time in a big organization like IBM, I realized that the company is just really consists of the people working there, and it's not at all as rational as people might think.
I definitely recognize that yeah, they're irrational in every different or similar way as people are irrational, I would
But
say.
then companies that have sort of understood and have sort of internalized what they really want and have been able to spread this idea through the organization are often quite successful. Or if it's the wrong thing, they go bankrupt if they can't change.
But I would add another thing when Gustav says, like, all people don't know where they want to go. Of course, it's not always easy to understand, but then you should go back and try to find what are your core values, your core beliefs, and start from there. So it's not a simple task with that self-leadership. Oh, I just draw the strategy of life. Like, it includes a lot of thinking, questioning yourself. Maybe if you don't know what you want to achieve, you start what is important for me, where are my core values and core beliefs, and start from there. And then you can find it easier. It's my advice.
Yeah,
But I like the fact that you say easier. You didn't say easy. It's
No,
just easier.
it's not easy, but it's easier. But it requires a lot of thinking.
I think one important thing, which I think I read somewhere in some management book, is that strategy is not a one-off thing. It's a strategy is a process. So you try to, at least from time to time, think about it, and it's
and strategy is not just, well, the idea, it's also the execution of the strategy which is important. And I think I've seen at least a lot of companies in the last years where they might have thought about the perfect strategy, but they have no way of knowing how to execute on the strategy, and then they're very surprised, disillusioned about, but this was the perfect strategy. Why are our employees not doing it, or why are our customers not? Well, there is more than just the perfect idea, of course.
Yeah, I read the book From Good to Great. It's a business strategy book, I think. It was quite good. And what is apparent in this book is that this strategy work where they try to find the companies, they call it the hedgehog concept, I think.
I don't remember anymore, but yeah.
It's the thing that a company can do better than others, and which is not easy to duplicate. That they try to find out what are their core values and their core capabilities. The process of finding this is not easy, and I believe in evolution and trying.
Yeah, and even if you find it, you need to keep readjusting, because like you say, what worked 10 years ago might not be the best strategy for today in the completely different world.
And then it's absolutely, as you say, it's also the execution. And I find when I think about the agile movement today, it has sort of evolved more into organization and psychology, which is not bad per se, but we sort of assume, or at least many people sort of assume, that we know how to execute and develop software. But actually, I sort of find that we have forgotten.
For me, there is a lot. Well, agile movement is moving a lot into management part of it, and we kind of forgot the technical excellence part.
What is happening is that we have new technologies coming in. It could be mobile development. It could be
big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence,
microservices, or
that's all. It's not new technology.
And what happens is that we as engineers, we become so busy with this new technology that we sort of forget the basic engineering principles, and we have to teach them again to young people. And there's a tendency to sort of throw away old good principles, saying that, oh no, that's just old stuff. This is a new world. You don't understand anymore.
Well, there's actually I had, but this isn't. We don't want to go too much into detail, but I had an interesting conversation with people I don't know, half a year ago, or I think it was before the pandemic, with a person about comparing microservices and the way mainframe works, and that there is a lot of things that we learned in the mainframe world that we forgot, but that actually are very much applicable to microservices, and that we can learn from that. But because mainframe looks so old and is like the thing that we want that should die and whatever, people kind of forgot about the lessons that they could learn from that. And because especially they see, oh, you're working on mainframe, you're kind of a dinosaur and you don't know anything. Well, actually, there's a lot of things that we can learn from that, because everything's coming back in one way or another.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes, in reliability. I think that was one advantage I had when starting working. I worked a lot with mainframe integration, in fact, and had a lot of interactions with old mainframe guys. And I see a lot of the things they told me then are now sort of coming back, and I understand what they meant. And also when seeing some developments in software development that we think are modern, when you actually look at it, they're like really old. So like now it's like, oh, no SQL, no SQL. Well, the data structures that are in these databases were there already in the 60s or 50s. So sometimes. So
yes, but then we are coming back what we are talking about: intersectional innovation, learning from one domain, applying that in another domain, to see the big picture, to see the whole, as it's the lean principle, to see a little bit higher helicopter picture, not just your like new technologies. And
I love how everything we talk it's at the same time enlarging, at the same time we're coming back to the original things that we already talked about. So this is very moving in all directions, and again very very linked. Let's move to something we talked, or that you, Gustav, you talked already a little bit before about. What have you learned about remote working?
Gustav had a long monologue. I don't know if you
Yeah, I
want
guess
to add
I told
anything.
most things, but one thing I have to say, which was surprisingly useful, is tooling. I find virtual whiteboards of different kinds to be really useful. And I find that the interaction that you can get if everybody is involved around the virtual whiteboard can be almost as good as a physical whiteboard session. And that was a bit of a surprise to me.
Well, I think a lot of us learned in this COVID because for many people, remote was the first time when they did it in COVID. I did it 10 years before, but even then, I think a lot of us, we learned that individuals and interactions over process and tool, well, these tools seem to be very interesting as well. If you have the new tools and the better tools, and today the tools are way better than 20 years ago for remote
Yes.
work. And it turns out that, whoa, it actually is starting to become possible to do remote whiteboarding and things like that. So
And some of these tools developed very quickly during the pandemic because they had to do that. So that's why we are getting, yes, much better tools. So
well,
I
the
would
whole world at the same time was doing remote, and everybody was asking kind of the same kind of things. So that's yeah.
I think there are also good tools for pair programming. That used to be research 20 years ago, or how to do pair programming remotely. But now it's like included in Visual Studio Code. So
Yes, but I don't
that's a
know
good
if
development.
it would have worked for us because when we worked together, we did a lot of pair programming and then we got married.
Well,
But I don't know with the remote pair programming if if it
That would
can
have.
work that way.
But the remote is also sometimes it's very interesting because my son had COVID some while ago, and well, we were both living in the same house, but of course he was separating in his room, and he had some questions about programming. And so, thanks to the remote tools, I was able to help him. So, if he just had a question, I just zoomed into his computer, he shared the screen, and he showed me a problem, and I could say, okay, did you think about that? Oh, I didn't. Okay, then he moved on and thought again about it. And then 10 minutes later, he contacted me again and said, wow, now I'm stuck there. Could you? And so that was interesting. And I didn't even think about that before, because before, of course, I would join in his room if there was something. But yeah, in a COVID situation, I didn't want to get ill. I didn't want to risk the rest of the family getting ill. So he stuck into his room, and this way we had on a very close location, I would say, even the possibility to just quickly remote dial in and jump out, which is, the more I thought about it, is that even for remote work, for example, Gustav, when you say you work with people around the world, you would never go on a plane to just have a 10-minute conversation.
No.
So now we have these tools to just say, okay, can you just jump in, look a little bit at the code, and then you go back again, even without going for very long remote sessions or pairing sessions. You could just look at each other's screen and help out, and yeah.
Definitely. And my conclusion is, if I can say just my remote working, of course, it has some drawbacks, but I think we got much more benefits than drawbacks. And I think many people agree that their work-life fusion or balance improved thanks to remote working. So I think although it's not perfect and we have to work out on those things, and some things can never be able to be replaced than personal interaction, but we improved generally. We got a lot of benefits with improved tools and thinking how we can work remotely. It's my opinion. And also,
Yeah, and I would say even what Gustav said is the fact that you kept working remote, but from an office with different kind of people, with
yes,
lawyers
yes,
and everything.
yes, exactly.
You still worked remote in a sense, huh?
Yes, that's very true.
And I guess one interesting thing is that we take screen sharing for granted now. I mean, and that's really a huge breakthrough, you could say. I mean, you could do it a long time ago, logging into other people's computers, but it was sort of a niche solution and something that didn't.
Yeah, it never were really worked, and it was like, because you really had to take over a computer, and do we trust people, and now it's like the tools. Basically, it's the video things, and here there is options probably to share some screens as well, and yeah, that's a whole different kind of ball game. Huh? That's definitely
Yes,
something.
maybe we will see that as a really revolutionary thing in the future.
In the future, indeed. That's okay. Let's move to that next question, and I know we have a few options there. So, what is a book that you want to share?
Yes, first I would like to share. It's not the book that I just read, but it's one of my favorite books, and it relates very well with that execution on strategy. It's not a business book. The book is called Grit by Angela Duckworth. So she analyzed people.
That's the book, huh?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So, but what I found in that book, it's answer on that strategy execution. So maybe it's just me who saw that connection. But
no, I read the book, and
okay, so you know.
I see that as well. I'm not surprised that you brought that one.
Yes.
You selected this one.
So like importance, when you want to achieve something, first to have a high level vision, but it's not enough. And maybe it's that conversation many companies believe, oh, if you have a high level vision, everything will be executed towards the vision. In order to assure that you are executing on strategy, along the way, you have to define those mid-level goals that are all the time like ask you to stretch yourself a little bit, but they're still realistic and achievable. And she has a very good explanation talking about people, but I think it can be applicable on companies also. If you have just a high level vision, what you want to achieve without having like thinking about exactly the strategy, then you're much more dreamer. You're dreaming about something, but you cannot execute on it. On the other side, you have people who are not able to see that high level vision, but they're setting their goals all the time. And it's good, but they cannot reach along the way. They're missing that high level vision. So I think both in business, but also in private life, the importance on having both high level vision and that you think about the strategy and mid-level goals. And when you have achieved the first one, to set the next one. And it's also related to motivation, perseverance, and everything. It's packed together. Then it gives you drive and motivation to continue, and etc.
Wow, it's it's been a while since I've read the book, but I like the way you link it back to the conversation that we just had.
Exactly.
Gustav, is there a book that you want to bring in?
Yeah, well, there are several, but unfortunately, the more interesting ones I've read a long time ago. So, but the ones I finished most recently was a book by Huraki Murakami. It's called "What I Think About When I Talk About Running." Yeah, what I talk about when I talk about running. It contains a little bit of life philosophy, but unfortunately, I cannot say that even though I do run and I would like to do more long distance running. I've been able to run 30 kilometers, which I never did when I was young. So I'm actually better than when I was young. I'm not a
30 kilometers is already it's already a lot. I'm not able to achieve that at this moment. So
yeah, but I'm not a sporty person. I do this. I realize that I need some time on my own with 3 kids and an intensive life. I tend to appreciate the moments I have for myself from time to time.
Even as an extrovert, you appreciate that.
Yes, even as an extrovert, it's a bit strange, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I think it's I know most people that even extroverts like that, but we don't often talk enough about it. This is why I'm asking the kind of squeezy question, because I think it's for many people it's true. No.
Yes, I'm saying he has a double personality. On one side, he can go and hike for several days in the north of Sweden without meeting any single person, a human being. On the other side,
that's actually the kind of hike I prefer.
Yes, On the other
Wow.
hand, he's desperate if he doesn't have a company for lunch. Like he must sit in the office surrounded by people. So it's, but maybe it compensates. Maybe each of us has like a loading time when you are getting energy, and then time when you think about and consuming maybe that energy that you got from others. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
sorry, I
don't
jumped
know,
in.
but it was interesting to read about what he thinks and how he thinks running is beneficial to his life. And for me, it's been interesting that it used to be that I could only run before together with someone else. That would have been my only motivation to go with a friend and talk and whatever. I would almost never do exercise alone. It was too boring. But that has changed. I do prefer to run with other friends, but I can now do it alone, which is a change.
And is that since you read the book, or is that just coincidence that's nothing to do with
Oh,
it?
I think it's more of a coincidence that this change happened before.
Yes, or maybe he wanted to read the book to find an explanation
Yes.
for the change behavior, I would say.
The engineer is back and says, "Why is this?" And now I need to understand the problem.
Maybe, but then he said something interesting in the book, and that is that he actually, I think his main idea is that he runs in order to get energy and stamina to write. Because writing takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of discipline. And when reading the book, I can understand why he's a very successful writer. I'm not. he has discipline.
Yes, and he has a very nice comparison in discipline when running and setting goals for triathlon, Ironman, and other competition, and also discipline in writing. He said in that book, very nice, he said like, oh, you believe that writers are like people just sitting in the coffee places, creative, drinking. It's not. To be a good writer, it requires a lot of discipline and everyday work. So I think it's really nice message.
I've heard that.
And setting goals for writing every day, so many words.
Something like that. I've heard that from other writers as well. There was one Swedish author called Jan Guillou. He's one of the more famous Swedish authors. I wouldn't say the best, but he's not bad. He said that inspiration is for amateurs. If you want to write a book, you sit down and you write. You don't know what you're supposed to write, but you sit down and you write something. And maybe at the end of the day, you've written one page. Maybe it's bad, maybe it's good. And then you go back and then you revise. And then every day you do that.
Well, the thing I've done when I've written things is that, there is also a trick that I've learned from, a little bit adapted from Ken Beck. I don't know if you heard it, but Ken Beck always used to say that it's really good to end a day with a broken test, so then the next day you immediately know how to restart. And I've learned a similar technique while writing, is that, for example, I would say I will write 300 words in a day or something like that. And then I would stop. And even if I still have an idea, so I wouldn't stop half this in middle of a sentence, but I would stop after a sentence, although there are people who even stop in the middle of a sentence. But then I really have lots of ideas on how to continue. So I have 5 more sentences in my head, but I do stop if at the moment I realize, okay, I have 300 words, whatever my goal is, and I would stop. And then the next day, restarting is very easy because I have already these first 5 sentences in my head, and they come back rather quickly. And then you're halfway to 300 words, and then you're stuck. And then, because you have already finished half of it, it's easier to continue. And then you continue, and all of a sudden you're 300 words again, and then you stop because this is the next day. And that is the combination of that stamina and that like you say, that goal that you want to keep doing. And at the same time, it's like that trick from Kent. Okay, you stop while you already know how to continue the next day. And that's the kind of thing that really was helping me when I was first writing things that I wrote a book about the what we did in our home. So we constructed a new home, and I wrote a small little book about it. Jana Rotman called it more a memoir for myself, because I don't think many people will read it. But it was a very good exercise for myself in practicing writing, and I did exactly that. I don't know anymore how many words I would write, but I would keep track of it in a Google spreadsheet. And it took me about halfway the book to realize, oh, if I still have 5 more sentences, I just stop, and then, because I would keep writing until I had no more ID, and then the next day I'm stuck because I have no ID, and I was like, damn. And
yes, it's really good idea to shorten then starting curve. That starting curve, yes. And give it. So I'm going to apply all those things once when I turn to my parallel career and start writing.
We'll see. Maybe sometime I will write something as well. I don't know. I have this thought in my head. That's
or you could do it both, then pairing it up again, and we'll see.
I don't know. You should stress things too much.
We have a different visions about our books, so we have to see if we can align those visions, maybe.
Yeah, I don't want to bring up a big marriage issue here.
We have a very happy marriage. I would like to keep it that way.
Yeah, let's keep it that way. Okay, well, I want to move to, for me, one of the most interesting questions is that, what question do you think I should also ask, and what is the answer?
Yes, when we are talking about the agile world, the agile community, I'm thinking like agile started with software development, technical issues, grew to processes, people, leadership. So product leadership, it covers so many domains, but does not cover enough business strategies. So from my perspective, I'm always asking, like, to be successful, because I think the goal is when you deliver software, you want that your customers are happy and they're using that. Why that, like, the last element is usually omitted? Because business perspective, it both gives you opportunity, but also setting constraints how you develop software. For example, if the company buys another company, just do merge and acquisition. I'm saying now you have to merge those two technical solutions and so on. It puts constraints. So why people don't talk enough about also that business perspective, both things that we can control and like set good business strategies, that because everything is linked together, it's reflecting on product strategy, on technology strategy, leadership, but also those constraints that we get maybe from the board or from investors in the company, because these elements are also like contributing that we successfully deliver our software. So it's something that I'm missing a little bit in agile community, and I would like to talk more and involve also that last part in that big picture. And I really believe when we combine all those perspectives, we are going to know better how we can be successful as a company.
I like that, and I think this is. I know in the UK, and I can't, and it's really bad because I can't come up with a name of a person. But I know in the UK, someone is busy with agile business conference or something like that, and it's much more the business side that is doing. And I had some similar discussions, and I'm definitely, next time we'll talk. This is an hour long, or this is a full evening conversation between the two of us. But I think there's a lot more that we agilists. I think it's even more the opposite. We agilists should much more go to the business communities and listen to their problems and see how we can help, because I know that in Belgium, at least, we've been trying for a lot of years to bring the business people into our agile communities, and that doesn't really work. And it's more like, no, we should go to them and listen to them, and then maybe say, oh, we might have a solution for that. But I fully agree on we need that kind of conversations. This is also what I like. I know, well, one of your, for me, most famous talks about the blue ocean. This is this kind of things. I really like this kind of concept, that we should think much more about that kind of stuff.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you for bringing that in. That's definitely a very important question to think about. Gustav, do you want to add something? Do you have a completely different question, different kind of things?
Yes, I have a question. Is why are there almost no developers or software architects to agile conferences? At least in AIL.
And do you have an answer to that?
Well, I think me working as a software development and with software architecture and whatever, I feel the conferences has become less relevant to what I'm doing. I mean, some developers are Scrum Masters. I guess they're perhaps more interested, but I feel like Agile is sort of losing its roots a little bit, and some of the Agile movement has sort of developed into what project management used to be, or organizational coaches, or which is not bad per se, but it's just it has become so broad an area that it's not relevant to its roots as much anymore.
Yeah, I recognize that. And I also say, and for me, not every coach should have a development background. But when I go to a company and when there is a set of coaches or there's a group of coaches, I'm really worried if there's nobody there that has experience with pure development, has never been a development. And in every group, there should at least be a few people who have that experience and who can say, okay, wait a minute, this is whatever you're saying, this is maybe more managerial and this is interesting, but how would we practically solve it? And especially indeed if we're talking about, okay, when we think about microservices and all these other kind of things, how do we deploy it? How do we test it? How do we, yeah, everything that we learned from the what I would call the extreme programming side of agile.
Yes.
So somehow
Yes,
that
yes. The more I think about it, the first book I read about Agile, it was actually extreme programming, and it's still so relevant today, I think.
both versions of that book.
Yes.
I really I like both versions, and I think they're both relevant. Although I still don't understand why it's twice the same name, because for me they're two different books. But yes, it's a relevant book.
Yes, and also related to this topic, I would like to refer to something that Gojko Ajic said, that when Agile Manifesto was written, when Agile movement has started, processes, organizational structure were bottlenecks, and that's why it came things which solved that problem. But now technology is bottleneck. Now we have a good practices for processes, for ways of working, how we organize ourselves for leadership. And it's also very interesting when we talk about agile conferences, big data, machine learning. I don't hear any talks about how to become data-driven company. For example, when you combine like technology and new ways of governance at the company, you know. So I think that we forgot or missed that we are still a little bit back in time, that processes and ways of working are bottlenecks. It feels it's not any longer. Now new technologies manage to develop so quickly and there are new bottlenecks. We don't know exactly how to handle, right? All those.
And like we said earlier on, we've forgotten some of the better ways of dealing with that stuff. And it's in the XP Day Benelux, the Belgium Netherlands, the Luxembourg conference, we have that same problem, and there still is every year, well, except for the last 2 years then, but every year there is a small, what I would say, part of it that tries to be technical, and they do it on purpose because they feel a little bit like what you said, Gustav. We wanted to keep it in, but there is very little amount of interest in it, and it still is there, but it's becoming a niche inside that conference. And it's yeah, there's, like you say, there's a lot of real developers that say, well, I don't feel it anymore in this conference because agile, and so they move more to the DevOps part or the other kind of things, but I think we definitely miss some, and it's interesting because for me, both of you talked about a miss. Mina, you talked about the development side, and Gustav, you talked about Mina, you talked about business side, and Gustav, you talked about development side, and it's that managerial process side that still is there, but both sides are missing, and we don't always realize that. That's
Yes, and I'm thinking also that there are a lot of developers, as you say, but they're attending other type of conferences. So it's pity that now we isolated like developers conferences that are go-to DevOps and those type and agile conferences. It should be mixture, right? Each conference should have like each part, that it's not isolation in that way anymore.
Yeah, and it's well, they all have probably a few sessions about the other part, but not enough.
Not enough from our perspective.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Okay, we've been talking for a very long time. I know that we're probably going over time, so I want to move to that last question. Who do you think I should ask next? Do you have one or a few names in mind?
Yes, I would like to recommend two very inspiring women. One is when I attended my first tale in 2014. Two persons who inspired me most was you, but now you're leading this conversation, so I cannot recommend you.
It's kind of hard to talk to myself, but yes.
Yes, maybe some self-leadership exercise. And the second person was Juana Junzo. She is also very active part of the AIL community. So I would like to hear her story and perspective on Agile, because she was involved in Agile software development for such a long time. And if I can recommend another person, it's one very, very nice Swedish girl who was also involved in Agile software development for a long time. Her name is Mia Kolmodin. So I recommend those two women.
Well, I really like it because it's for me both things. There's one person that I know very much. I've worked a lot with Oana. We co-developed the coach retreat together, and I love working with her. And like you say, at AIL, well, she's also one of the first who brought her children and who's doing presentations. So that there's a lot that we share there, and I love her. And at the same time, you bring in a name from someone that I don't know, or maybe I know but I forgot. But anyway, it makes me invite someone or someone that I don't know. So that's also very interesting for me. Gustav, do you want to invite some people?
Yes. I would like to mention my old colleague Jimmy Jandén from CRISP.
I have to say Jimmy in English.
Jimmy.
Jimmy. We say Jimmy in Sweden.
Yes.
I think he's really good at visualization and general agile guy. I think he's independent nowadays.
Indeed, he is. Yes.
And then, if you want to have to talk to somebody with more of an enterprise mindset who has been working in larger organizations, I would mention my old colleague whom I did research with, Jana Nyfjord, who I think again is working at Spotify, but she's been working at in different positions in the industry and research, and she's been involved in Agile for almost as long as I have, but have had more important management positions and perhaps could give some other perspective as to the applicability of agility on managerial levels.
Especially from organizational structure perspective. Now she works as an organizational structure coach or something, and she is one of the organizers of XP conferences. So she is in the XP.
That's where I so the name rings some kind of bell,
yes,
but I didn't know from where. So so that's
and then she's also has quite a lot of background in enterprise modeling and enterprise architecture, which is also kind of interesting.
So it kind of brings everything together, because she's well, that's an interesting. So I'm looking forward to talking to well, all four of these people. To end up with, if people want to contact you, what would be a good way to contact you? Mina, what would be for you a good way
For
to
me,
contact you?
my favorite is LinkedIn. It's still like
And I think this is, you have a very interesting LinkedIn, because that's the one that came to me. I'm not sure if it is the exact link. Maybe I can drop some part of it, but that link definitely works because I just copy
yes,
pasted
okay,
it.
yes. I know. Maybe I opened the account long time ago, so that's why it's such a like strange.
Yeah, it
It's
could be.
LinkedIn. It's still my favorite social media.
I would also say my LinkedIn, even though my
And
profile
that's probably
is
your
perhaps
profile.
not as interesting as Mina's. No.
It's just a presentation layer.
But if you want to see another side of me, you can also look at my old blog, which is more about hiking. It's called The Bearable Lightness.
I don't have a link to that one, so I'll add it to the show notes
If it's
when
still
I
up there,
prepare.
I don't know. I
Yes,
haven't written anything since 2013, but it might be interesting if somebody would like to know what it is like to hike in Sweden.
Okay, so that's definitely a separate part that we can. Well, if it's still up, I'll add the link anyway. So I would like to thank both of you for this time, and I hope that your children are still behaving, because I know that somewhere they're still waiting for you. So I hope everything is fine there, and I wish, well, both of you and your family a lot of love and everything, because I know that we will definitely, maybe it's in Stockholm, maybe it's somewhere else, but I definitely know that we'll meet again in the future.
yes, and thank you, Eva. Thank you not only for inviting us in this initiative, but thank you for driving so many great initiatives where people can grow together with you, like doing crowdsourcing, book writing, a lot of those podcast videos. You're always like involving people and helping them achieve some of their goals to grow them and develop. And I would
You're
like
welcome.
to send greetings to your family and to publicly invite your lovely daughter Geike to Sweden to visit us. So now
She's in a scouting camp right now, and I know that she doesn't look all of my videos because, of course, I'm just the old dad. But I know that from time to time she watches it, and I'm kind of expecting her to listen to this one. So we'll see.
it's official invite from our side.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Dankjewel.
Wow, some Dutch. Thank you well.
Een beetje Nederlands, hè?
We should have done it in Dutch. Okay, but
Oh.
okay. See you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.